I feel like
We are back and we are live. There is a lot to cover on this mega stream today. We will start with the National Hockey League and weave through what has been a very busy time in the world of sports as Couch Potato Diary Live is back and it's on now. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. We are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag. We got it right here. New Calgary Cannons hat is out now. A couple other great shirts available. A lot of it's going quickly, so get on it as quick as you can. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. Of course, as always, we are fueled by Swift Energy. We're going to need it today. This is going to be a long one. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PK Primetime for 25% off. Things looking a little bit laggy on my end to start. So let me know if there are any issues wherever you are catching this one live here today. We are on youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, and kick.com/PrimetimePK. Yes, Deeds, the Panthers won, the Oilers lost, everything is right in the world once again. So we may as well just talk about it. Let's get in and start talking about the National Hockey League. First, we will begin with the Stanley Cup champions, twice in a row now, the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers, maybe they aren't a dynasty yet, but they are certainly, as Chris Cuthbert said, they are knocking on dynasty's door after back-to-back Stanley Cup championship victories, what ends up being convincing championship run for the Panthers as they dominated. They really did. It was a very, very good performance from this team, and they I think they wore down the Edmonton Oilers as the series went on. I really do believe that this was a major problem for Edmonton, and this Panthers team, it is a relentless style. It is a very impressive style that they put on these teams, and the fact that they are able to do this after winning the Stanley Cup last year is nothing short of incredible to be able to put that type of a performance together. So very, very impressive stuff here from the Florida Panthers. I'm blown away that a team can do that type of a performance in the Stanley Cup final while having won it a year ago. Like, to have the desperation to do that again is so very impressive. So hats off. Sea of Dead hat off to the Florida Panthers for what they did. Like, it was complete control. It is what it was. It was on the offensive side, wearing down the defense, and that aggressive forecheck, relentless pressure, forcing the turnovers. And it is just the added pressure. Obviously, like, that forecheck is relentless and everything with that. But also to have the other team knowing that any mistake they make is going to come back into a high danger opportunity for you, that's a very, very, very scary proposition for these teams to deal with. And Edmonton, it wore them down at some point. Like, Edmonton, they certainly had their injury issues and all of those things, but they were beaten up by the end of this. They were. And the Panthers really just absolutely took it to them. Defensively, it wasn't a brilliant performance on all accounts, but what they did against Connor McDavid is going to stick with me for a very long time. And none of it is on McDavid. I will put that out there. This is a team that did one of the best jobs on one of the best players to have ever played the game that I have seen in any sport. When you look at how well they were able to limit Connor McDavid and the opportunities that he had, what Barkov was able to do, what Reinhart was able to do, and what this whole defense was able to put out there was just so incredible. The job they did in limiting McDavid. Did it lead to chances for other people? Yeah, it did. Did it lead to some breakdowns early on in the series? It absolutely did. You could see, and this was one of the things that impressed me too about this Panthers team as the series went on, is that they got better. As this series went on, they got better and they learned from some of the mistakes. You look at a couple of the first games, you would have a couple of guys following McDavid. Just like anytime he would have it, okay, we're on to him. And that led to a lot of weak side opportunities. Bobrovsky would stop some, he wouldn't stop all of them. Eventually, they figured out how to handle that, and they allowed a couple of opportunities for Bouchard. We kind of talked about it in some of the other podcasts here, but they allowed Bouchard this opportunity because the Oilers were doing this kind of high in the zone cycle with Nugent-Hopkins and with McDavid, and Nuge would drop it off, and a defender followed him, and they drop it to McDavid, so obviously a defender's following him. Well, now you have two defenders over on that side of the ice who are occupied. You have two down at the front of the net, and like 90% of the zone is just wide open for Bouchard to walk in. He gets a great opportunity and it's stopped. Later that same game, Edmonton did the same thing. Florida stayed put. They did a fantastic job of still limiting the top players, but not overcommitting to it to allow some of the other high-level players that Edmonton had to slow them down in any way. Just fantastic work from this team. And they really should be applauded for it. And then something that could be lost in a lot of what happened in this series is Sergei Bobrovsky. A lot of the talk in net was on the Edmonton side. Bobrovsky, I think, deserves some flowers because he was excellent. And I think that was a big part of the frustration for Edmonton is that they were getting some chances. And he was there to shut the door time after time after time after time, just not letting them get any opportunities, and really frustrating this Edmonton team. He was excellent. He wasn't what he was last year. There's no question about that. He was not that guy, but he was such a dominant force between the pipes in this series still that it was enough to get the Panthers a pretty convincing win at the end of it. And so now you look at what this means historically. Look, I'm based in Calgary. I'm on Calgary radio out here more often than not recently. But the general wisdom is that the Panthers have vanquished evil. And there's a lot of people in this part of the world who are very, very excited that the Florida Panthers have knocked off the Edmonton Oilers, the present company included in that. But you do have to look at the overall, like, okay, is something like this good for hockey, I would say. And my initial thought is yes. You don't want this kind of a dominant run to last forever. You don't want, oh wow, the Panthers have won 7 in a row, champions again. You don't want that sort of a thing, but it is good to have a standard bearer. It is good to have, quite frankly, for those not in Florida and southern Alberta, it is good to have a villain out there, and the Florida Panthers are that, and now they are the measuring stick in the National Hockey League. 3 Stanley Cup appearances, no duh. Back-to-back Stanley Cup championships, yeah, that's going to give you that measuring stick label. But they are, I think, a great example of what happens when you run an organization properly, when you actually put the right people in place and build a culture around this team. So is it good to have a top team like this, or is parity the way to go? I think having a top team like this is good for a while. As long as, like I said, it's not like 5, 6, 7 Stanley Cups and they're just dominating there. But it is good for stints to have a team that everyone is measuring up against so that you know, all right, if nothing else, this is the game I need to watch. Because as you're trying to grow the game, it's not just going to be, oh, there's any hockey on, let me watch this. You need to have a marquee team that people know who to pay attention to. And right now, that team in the NHL is the Florida Panthers. You don't want parity because then everyone feels the same. And if everyone feels the same, no one is special. And if no one is special, no one's watching. So this type of a thing from the Panthers, I think it's a good thing for the National Hockey League. We can have debates about how they got here with the tax thing and all of that. But I think that I think it's great. I think it is awesome for the sport that you have a team in a non-traditional hockey market, and I get there's been a few of them recently, but you have a team in a non-traditional hockey market getting this type of a buzz in their market. So credit to them for that. The question now is this a dynasty? And to that, I would say no. To me, it has to be like kind of a 4-year run for there to be the dynasty call, and 3 championship wins have to be involved. I think like back-to-back is very impressive. Don't get me wrong. Only 2. How could you? Obviously, that's not the case. But I do think having a run of 4 and having at some point you win 3 in a row, or not 3 in a row, but 3 in a reasonable amount of time, not 3 in 10 years, but like 3 and 4 would do it. 3 and 5, yes. 3 and 6, and we're pushing it a little bit, but they are right on the doorstep, and they have a lot of interesting questions now this offseason with Ekblad, with Bennett, with Brad Marchand. What do they do with those guys? They are at a point with roster construction, with how I view them as a team building group, and how I view them as an organization that just knows how to scout. I view this as a team that now is one where if you have any kind of a problem, like, okay, well, yes, Bennett's leaving, so we have to figure this out. So what do we do? Okay, well, we found this guy for $875,000, and we just kind of plucked him, brought him on our roster, and hey, look at that. Now we won again. You know, like, I feel like that's probably the way that this team goes, is like, will they? I think that Bennett should want to stay in Florida. I think that Bennett should try desperately to stay in Florida. And I think that this is a spot that is perfect for him. But if he leaves, I do trust that this team will be able to find the next Sam Bennett and try to go about it that way. So we'll have more conversations like that on future episodes, and looking at like what they can do, what they can find with this team to see how they can get to where they want to get to, I guess, here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have a chat from Deeds. This one here. Highly impressive how they've gone to 3 straight finals and 2 straight cups. That's a lot of hockey in the last 3 years. It is. And to stay so motivated to do what they have done is so freaking impressive. And to be able to play that style too. It's not like it is just like a run and gun whatever. This is a style that is really hard to play. Matthew Tkachuk's skeleton is just basically floating empty in his body because all the muscles have detached from it at this point. Like that's the type of commitment we are talking about with this team and with this guy. And they still go out, they still play that style. It is still successful for them, obviously, and now they have Stanley Cups. Also, want to shout out Deeds in the chat, reaching Sweet 16 here with Primetime PK over on Twitch, as he is subscribed now for 16 months. So a huge thank you to Deeds for that. Wherever you are watching this, if you want to hit that subscribe button, that would be so greatly appreciated. And Deeds, always fun having you in the chat. So we'll talk about some legacy things. We'll talk about different free agent stuff as we get into off-season mode coming up a little bit later on. But there is another side of this, one that is significantly less happy than the other side, which brings a lot of people in the part of the world that I live in quite a bit of joy. So we will talk now about the Edmonton Oilers. It is back-to-back times they have lost in the Stanley Cup final. So where do they go from here? Let's break it all down, shall we? So, on one hand, you have a dynasty that is forming. On the other hand, you have a lot of very difficult questions that need to be answered after back-to-back Stanley Cup losses for the Edmonton Oilers. Let's talk about the series, first of all. This was one where they got beaten up, and they wore down, and eventually, I think, the better team won this series. You stack up these two rosters, and aside from, the best and third best player in the world, it ain't close. It's not. It's just not. It is a credit to McDavid and Draisaitl and the other pieces who stepped up along the way for getting this team to this point. But they have to get beyond this point. There is only one stop left beyond it, but that's the one that they have to get to when you have the high-level talent that this team has at this point. And so offensively, did they miss Hyman? Yes. Was that the reason they lost? I don't think so, because Corey Perry did a pretty darn good Zach Hyman impression. And this team in 6 games ends up losing by 11 goals total, right? Like a 28-17, I believe, is what the final goal call was. So Corey Perry, maybe he is not Zach Hyman, but Hyman ain't making up 11 in this series over what Perry was doing, right? So I don't. And because You put Perry back on the fourth line, and you saw he wasn't as effective. I would say the top line wasn't as effective. I thought that was a mistake from Knobloch, trying to get something out of more lines than just a McDavid one and just a Draisaitl one. But offensively, these guys just they couldn't figure out Bobrovsky. McDavid never really had that dominant takeover game. It was all very well done on the Florida Panthers side of the equation to limit all of those opportunities. Defensively, it was way too many turnovers. That's what got them. They were beat up. They were wore down. This team was over their skis defensively for like 2 months in this postseason, right? Like we were mocking the players that they were throwing out there on the blue line, and they were getting the job done. They were playing with such great speed on the defensive end and playing pretty sound defensive hockey. You were wondering, like, okay, is this just this team now? Against the Panthers, they weren't, because Florida has a way of exploiting a lot of weaknesses that you may have and just beating you up. And again, it takes 3 mistakes and you're down 3-0. That's a lot to come up against. That's a really, really difficult team to have to battle with. So for the Oilers, no question, they felt a little bit overwhelmed here. And then I just think a lot of guys who were playing better than their hockey DB page, whether it was Klingberg, whether it was Bouchard defensively, right? Kulak, all these guys were playing so much better than you would expect them to play. And that all came crashing down against the Florida Panthers. And then there's the goalie question. Did they lose this series because of Stuart Skinner? They did not. He was not the biggest reason that they won. Or that they lost, sorry. But Bobrovsky wasn't the biggest reason the Panthers won either. But he was still so much better than Skinner was. And it's again, it is every mistake ends up in the back of your net. You don't want you don't need your goalie to have a save percentage of 1,000 on high danger chances, but could we get to 800? And Skinner was that in the first part, and then he wasn't as that series went along. This team has a lot of holes that they need to plug, but getting an upgrade in goal is now absolutely crucial to this team getting ultimately where they need to get to with McDavid and Draisaitl. Yes, the defense needs to improve. I'm not doubting that for a second. Yes, this team needs to get more scoring aside from the top 2 guys, but they need a goalie who can steal them a game or two. It's asking a lot of a team to win 16 games in the playoffs and have your goalie not steal you some. And maybe he did against the Stars, but they needed at least one in these, just while everything is going crazy and trying to get a little bit of momentum. Could you just not let the first one in at any point and see if we can do it? So was he the biggest problem? No, but he was not anywhere close to being part of the solution either. And right now, Edmonton is just looking for solutions. You can bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go. Make sure you check out the podcast, as it is available on Spotify, also on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Looking now at kind of the future for the Edmonton Oilers. The question is, how does this team get over the hump? The answer is get a whole lot better while getting significantly more expensive. Every team is going to go into this offseason thinking, you know what though? Cap's going up. Salary cap's going up. We're going to be golden, baby. We got this. No. I don't know if Edmonton can be relying on that necessarily, because Bouchard, his extension is basically going to make up for a lot of the growth that they had in the salary cap anyway. So there goes that. And then also, Connor McDavid is going to get a significant raise in a year. That's going to take up a lot. So now, how do you find the depth pieces that you were having trouble finding anyway, improve the blue line that you haven't been able to improve, aside from one very good trade with Ekholm, in a really, really long time, and find any goalie who can make a stop in the Stanley Cup final, while having less resources to do that with? This is where the GMs earn their money. And Stan Bowman, I hate that he has another opportunity in the National Hockey League. It's not an easy one now, because he has to find a way to live up to the expectations of Stanley Cup or bust with the best player on the earth right now and not a whole lot of money to work with. And there's not much you can do. Like, we can point here and say, yeah, Darnell Nurse has one of the worst contracts in the NHL at, what was it, 9.5, 9.25? And he is a liability. Back-to-back cup runs, he has been a liability. And last year you could blame it on Cody Ceci. This year, like Kulak's not going in the Hall of Fame, but he's at least steady, and it still didn't matter. You can't have your top paid defenseman be that much of a liability for your team and still have any hope of succeeding. And then you are overpaying guys like Arvidsson. Kane is getting wildly overpaid right now. You are going, if you want to get off of those players, you are going to have to attach draft picks to them, basically, if you are going to get them out of town. So it's going to be a lot of work for Edmonton to try to get over the hump. And then you have a giant question hanging over Connor McDavid. I don't think he leaves. I think that Connor McDavid is going to be an Edmonton Oiler for life. I would be very surprised if it was the other way. But that is on the table now because we're going into year 10 with this guy. And for him to not have one Stanley Cup ring, while he is so much better than everyone else who plays in this league, is beyond comprehension. Like, you could sim his career a number of different times, and this, aside from catastrophic injury, this run would be like toward the bottom of what was possible with this player. It has been mismanagement the entire way along. And so now it really, the pressure is really on with what do they do with this particular hockey player, because he is still elite, but he is still ringless, and that's insane when you see him stand out at the Four Nations, when you see him stand out in last year's playoffs, and how even when it feels like he was down in this series, it's still like 7-8 points in the Stanley Cup final against one of the better defensive teams we have had in a really long time. They have a lot of work to do. I'm not going to do the will he demand a trade, because I don't think so. I do not think he will do that. The one question I have, and we can go into it a little bit more as this season goes on, or as the offseason goes on. If he doesn't sign that extension by like 5 o'clock Eastern time on July 1st, you start to have the conversation of not could they, but should they move on from him. And I'm not doing this to be hot takey. It is just, this is one of the things you now have to think about with this, because you, as an organization, cannot let him walk out the door for free. And so if you guys are $250,000 off on a deal, shut up and just give it to him. But if you guys are close, then obviously not, right? Like, of course not. But if it feels like there's just nothing happening, like you want to give him 8 by 17 and he wants 4 by 20, and just none of those, you can't find a middle ground, then what do you do? Because you're the organization that traded away Wayne Gretzky and are kind of forever known as that. But yet, you are also the organization that traded away Wayne Gretzky and still won the damn thing after you did that. So, like, I don't even know what a trade would look like for a McDavid or anything like that. But it is just, if that extension isn't signed almost immediately, it becomes something you at least have to think about, because you cannot let that go for free and just go, $12.5 million in cap space, so that's awesome. That's just not how it goes. We got Tall John 75 in the chat here talking about the Edmonton Oilers. Goalie is number one. Connor needs to take a team-friendly deal to be with Leon, let the team have a serious cup run or multiple cup runs to be able to beat this Panthers type of a team. I don't know where I come down on this, because like Crosby forever took team-friendly deals, and that allowed them to keep Malkin and Letang and Fleury for a bit and all of that. At the same time, like, I would argue he is on one now. Like, him at $12.5 million should be team-friendly enough for the best player in the world at that should be, I gave you guys enough for that. Like, I feel like this is a time to, you have such a small earning window when you are a professional athlete, right? And look, no one's crying poor for these guys, but it is like your job to try to get as much money out of this as humanly possible. And now, like, of course, there's a point, right? Like, he has already made a lot of money. And the difference between a $100 million contract and a $95 million contract probably doesn't mean that much to him. And he doesn't strike me as the type who needs to be the highest paid player in the National Hockey League. I do think there is pressure from the PA. Like, I don't think he can go into free agency when you have the salary cap going up and when you have Panarin as a UFA, when you have Kaprizov as a UFA, Kyle Connor is going to be up. Like, you have a lot of guys whose contracts are going to be up, and kind of hoping for him to reset the market when it comes to star players. He can't take 8x875. Like, he can't. And the PA would, like, simply not allow that. They would light the contract on fire themselves. They're just like, hey, can you just pass that over for us? Fuck yourself, get double digits at least. Let's go here, right? Like, there is that level of it. So I hear what you are saying, and I think of it as any kind of hometown discount. It has to be, like, $2 or $3 million a year type of a discount to be able to try to help the team out. But like he is going to be the highest paid player on this team. So that means it is a raise of at least $2.5 million. And I think it should probably be significantly more than that based off of this. But yeah, like I'm not going to hold it against him, I'll say, if he doesn't take a hometown discount or anything like that, right? So it's an interesting kind of a next layer too. It's like, okay, how much do you want to win? Because you know that story is going to happen, right? There's enough people in Edmonton that if he signs 8x20, there's going to be people being like, well, he just killed the franchise. That this guy is so selfish, clearly doesn't want to win, just focusing on himself for trying to make the most money possible. That there are going to be those conversations. But I do not begrudge the best player on earth wanting to be paid as such. Deeds in the chat. If you are off by $1 million, you pay McDavid. Oh yeah. Like if you're off by $1 million, you don't try to, hey, can we wiggle that down by $500,000? It's like, oh no, you know what? Boy, I could have swore we had a 9 written down there. That's only an 8. Boy, I thought we must have been a typo. Yeah, no, we're on the same page here. We're good. We're good. We got this. Yeah, we're fine. That it would have to be that. It would be that sort of a conversation for me. And Tall John 75 again. A McDavid trade would look like an Eric Lindros level of a trade from Quebec. I think this could be, we're getting into off-season territory. And so if we wanted to freak some people out a little bit north of us, what would a trade from each team look like? It might put that in the old content bank going forward, because I think that could be a pretty fun conversation to have. If for nothing else, just to dare to dream, I would say. But overall, the saying "so close but yet so far" really does feel like it pertains to this Oilers team, because they were 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup this year and 1 win away last year. It's closer than every other team but one has got to the Stanley Cup in the last 2 years. But you look on the ice and they're not close. And you look on the Puckpedia page and they're really not close. And you just think of how they could get better. I don't know where better is coming from. The obvious one is John Gibson, but that's been an obvious trade for 4 years. They're gonna trade for this guy when he's 39 years old, and he's coming in on a last legs of a contract. Hey, finally got him. That one needs to be addressed. The goalie situation. Stuart Skinner seems like an awesome dude. Everyone who has interviewed him cannot stress enough how awesome this guy is. Super. He'll be fine being a backup next year then, because he is not winning a Stanley Cup with this team. They have 2 examples of it now. In back-to-back playoffs, he's been pulled because he's been bad. And this last one, they needed him to be great, and he just didn't get there with this team. So is that to say he never will? No. But this Oilers team does not have time to figure it out with him. But yeah, fun conversation, and a lot more to come on that in the weeks and months ahead. I will say, for those who are watching here in the stream, we are doing this, I've kind of broken them up by podcast. We're taping a few podcasts on the show today, if you could see in the descriptions there. So there's more hockey talk to come. It'll be in a little bit here on the stream, but there is more hockey talk on its way. For podcast listeners, it's going to be out tomorrow. But for those watching, it will be coming up here in a little bit. But now we move to the world of Canadian football, as the CFL is entering week 3. Where does everyone sit? It's time for Power Rankings. Probably let that go a little bit too long, but I really enjoy it. CFL Power Rankings for the week as we head into week 3. As we are recording this, week 3 is underway. So, timing a little bit off on my part, but we'll be all right. Let's go 9 through 1. One of the teams that's playing right now, the Edmonton Elks. They come in at number 9. The week off last week, they didn't leave a great impression on their way out the door in week 1, though. This is a reminder, and we'll talk about it in the picks here in a little bit. It's a reminder it's a young team. And it's a growing team, and it's a very young to the job head coach. So there's going to be growing pains with this team. I like a lot of the pieces they have, and I think they'll be contending for a playoff spot, in part because the East is dreadful, as you will find out in the next couple of teams. But I think the assumption that they were going to be great right away, maybe there was a little bit too much hype on that. So they get down at number 9. At 8, it's Toronto. It looks bad. And I get Chad Kelly is coming back maybe week 4 for this team, but they don't have the weapons offensively. They can't run the football. The offensive line is not awesome. And that defense has been burned in unique ways in back-to-back weeks. Now, one would say, oh, well, that means they haven't in the other way, which, cool. But it's not a good defense. They lost so many pieces off of the Grey Cup championship team from a year ago, and they did not replace them in any meaningful way. So this is just, quite frankly, is a bad football team that is going out there for Toronto on a weekly basis. Coming in at number 7, I have the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Ticats, I thought continuity was going to be a big thing for them coming into this season and an area of growth for this team. Instead, they look as new as everyone else does. There are passes from Bo Levi Mitchell that are sailing over hands. When they're hitting hands, they're getting dropped. It looks so out of sync. And this defense that stepped up when Chris Jones came in as the defensive assistant last year, it hasn't looked great under Munson in a couple of weeks. And I think Munson's a good defensive coordinator, but I don't think he has a great roster to work with. And so again, this is a defense that continues to have trouble getting off of the field. And then when they do, they're not off of it for very long because their offense isn't doing anything. This is the team that is off to a slow start that I have the most confidence in bouncing back at some point. But holy hell, do they have a long way to bounce back from, because it is looking really bad. Coming in at number 6, it is the Calgary Stampeders. I am still probably a little bit too low on Calgary, coming off of a 2-0 start. It looks awesome. It really does. Like, Vernon Adams is lighting it up. Losing Reggie Begelton hurts quite a bit. But with Dominique Grimes and 2 young receivers that look like they're blossoming, coming off of big games with Barnes and with Jalen Philpott, you can see where the potential is in this team. It's the defense that I'm worried about a little bit. They're playing great. Do not get me wrong, that they are playing some very good football, but they've played very good football against a Hamilton team that hasn't won yet and a Toronto team that hasn't won yet. Now, they've contributed to half of those losses for these teams, but I fear that when they play, with all due respect, good offenses, that defense may get exposed a little bit more. So I'm still being a little bit cautious when it comes to the defense for and the overall ranking for the Calgary Stampeders. Coming in at 5, it is the Ottawa Red Blacks. And there's an obvious why don't you flip these teams here with Ottawa and Calgary, given the start for both of these clubs. Ottawa, I still believe in the potential of what this offense can be. And part of Ottawa's issue is the injury at quarterback with Drew Brown going down with the injury. Schultz just didn't look good in week number 2. And that's kind of life of a backup quarterback in the Canadian Football League. But I like a lot what they have on offense. I think they need to refine the offensive play calling a touch, but I like what they have on offense. I do not like what they have on defense, and that is a concern for sure. But I think this will be a team that is still hanging around that number 2 seed in the East Division by the time we get to November. We're going to get to the top half of the power rankings here in just a second, but want to remind you, you can follow me on social media. Boy, I'm not liking how slow that's moving. You can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, everything out on the socials. Follow me at Primetime Klein. Yeah, we'll just hit the little eye thing on that, and we probably won't do that one again on the stream because that was concerning. So number 4, it's the BC Lions. Looked awesome against Edmonton, didn't look awesome against Winnipeg. I think that's going to be their life, is like Winnipeg is going to give them a very difficult time. Montreal is going to give them a very difficult time. Other than that, I think like Saskatchewan and them will be close. And then they will be better than everybody else in the Canadian Football League. Like that's who these guys are right now. But Nathan Rourke feels like he's back. Defensively, you're a little bit concerned about how Strevler had a good game against them, and how Winnipeg Winnipeg was able to move the ball on this team. You have concerns about that, for sure. I do think they're going to be fine, though. It's a tough test for them again, though, this week. At 3, it is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, coming off of a win on week number 2 against a BC team that we are still a little bit like, okay, what are they? I still have questions about Winnipeg, for sure. I don't know if those questions get answered until November, to be perfectly honest with you. But I still do worry, and they have some injury problems too now, but I worry about where this team is at kind of long term, and seeing how this season kind of plays out. But so far, so good. Number 2, it's Saskatchewan. The Rough Riders off to a 2-0 start. It hasn't looked incredibly impressive at times, but when this team gets rolling, they look like the best team in the CFL. Offensively, it's so many weapons that they can spread that ball around to. Defensively, they got back to the ball hawking ways last week. They can force a ton of turnovers, and I think this defensive line, is really just kind of scratching the surface for how good they can be. So I think that there's a little bit of potential in here. I like the roster a lot, and we have seen them in both games so far play at a very, very high level and give the opposition quite a few problems. And at number 1, it's Montreal. They are so easily the most complete team in the Canadian Football League right now. This defense is smothering. The offense can beat you in so many different ways. I think you have to have Montreal as the best team in the Canadian Football League. So they stay number 1 in the power rankings for heading into week number 3. Deeds in the chat. While the Stampeders have played great, the offense is worrying with the fact Vernon Adams Jr. not throwing for a touchdown yet against not so strong defenses they have faced. I wouldn't look too much into that part of it. Do I think maybe some regression is coming for the offense? I mean, maybe. Like, no Bagleton is going to hurt that a lot. But he has been so electric in moving the ball down the field, and then it has just been rushing touchdowns or whatever. Those numbers are going to come. If we're 3 or 4 weeks from now and it's low and it's more interceptions than it is touchdown passes, then you start to worry. But right now, it looks good for them. So I don't really have many concerns about where this offense goes. I have a touch of a concern about how sustainable the running attack was, that they had a big week in week 1 and it already kind of fell off in week 2. We'll see how that continues to go. And I do think the passing game is going to suffer a bit without Reggie Bagleton. So we will see. There could be a bit of a drop-off there offensively for this team. Absolutely, Deeds. So that's where all these teams rank. How do we think they're going to do this weekend? It is now time for our CFL picks going into week number 3. Week 3 is here in the Canadian Football League, and we are taping this while it's happening. So it's we're not going to have the Montreal-Edmonton preview on this or anything like that. So apologies for that one. But a reminder that I do the best bets over at 3 Down Nation. So head over there for my predictions. I even had a Montreal-Edmonton one if you, for some reason, are looking for pregame coverage while the game is happening. But we go to tomorrow as the Saskatchewan Roughriders take on the Toronto Argonauts. This, of course, a rematch of the 1997 Grey Cup, as everyone is discussing. The Riders, they have looked good at times. It hasn't been perfect. I mean, the record is, but they haven't been perfect. But they have looked really good in various stretches as well. The good thing I like about the offense is it's so many ways to beat you. To the point, Kadeem Carey isn't even playing this week against Toronto, which I think kind of sucks. It's a revenge game, whatever, but there is no question he is one of your top 2 running backs on the team right now. We can appreciate what Thomas Bertrand-Houdon did for them in week number 1 when AJ Ouellette went down, but you see it was only 6 carries, but you see Carey and how electric he can be. I don't know how you keep him out. I'm sure it is a ratio thing, but it seems like a play that they probably didn't need to make. They are also going to be missing Sam Emelis this week, so it is a big weapon out of the receiving core, but they have plenty of them. Keyshawn Johnson with the 100-yard game last week. You have Picton, who has stepped up in big ways. Schaefer Baker has been hurt. Talk about Desmond Bain a little bit later on the stream, but Bain has been hurt right now as well. But they have other guys who can step up in this receiving core, and you have a quarterback who is just zipping it around right now. I said in the Rider thoughts after the game, which I also do for 3 Down Nation, there is no number one receiver in the mind of Trevor Harris. The number one receiver is the first guy who's open, and boom, okay, first down, let's keep the ball moving. That's what he does. So there isn't that number one guy on this team, but there doesn't need to be. There also probably doesn't need to be against this Toronto defense, who we talked about it in the power rankings. They have struggled against multiple different facets of football in the last couple of weeks. They got picked apart in their secondary by Vernon Adams and the Stampeders, and in week number 1, they got run all over by Sean Thomas Erlington. So AJ Ouellette probably going to have another pretty good day because the offensive line looks really good for Saskatchewan, even though they have injury issues so far. And also, the passing attack should have a pretty good game. Like, I think that Saskatchewan is designed to give this team a lot of problems. For Toronto offensively, it hasn't clicked with Arbuckle here after the Grey Cup heroics from a season ago. I think that he's going to have some problems. He does not handle pressure really well, and he forces a lot of passes. And you can do that against Calgary and kind of get away with it. You cannot do that against the team that led the CFL in takeaways by like 100 last season. That's just, it is a recipe for disaster. So there isn't really an aspect of this game that I think, okay, Toronto has that one. So that's why I love Saskatchewan minus 2.5 going into this one. Ottawa taking on the Calgary Stampeders. The Stamps looking to go 3-0 as they work their way through Ontario. Calgary's offense has given them a boost. Vernon Adams Jr. has been everything that you would want him to be this season. And again, they don't include a passing touchdown, but it's a noticeable upgrade offensively. And the emergence of Barnes and Philpott is really important with Bagleton going down. Each of those guys has had a 100-yard receiving game this season. They're going to need one of them to step up because Bagleton, like that, it's a broken leg, man. That's going to be a bit to recover from. I know it wasn't to the extent that Chad Kelly broke his leg, and not all leg breaks are broken equal, but this is going to be tough, and it's going to be a while. And so they're going to need those guys to step up here in this spot. The good thing is they're facing an Ottawa secondary that I have no faith in at all. I do not like how this Ottawa team stacks up on the defensive side of the football, and I think Calgary can very much take advantage of that. Ottawa still dealing with Drew Brown, who is beaten up right now, so maybe it chills, and this Calgary defense that we have questions about, maybe it doesn't get tested here for another week. So again, this is one, had a very good week last week, I will say, on the best bets, went 4-0. And this was a week this week where I was like, oh, well, that one's an obvious one. Oh, that one's an obvious one. And it got to the point where I was like, I am worried about what I'm not seeing that they're seeing, because I love quite a few of these lines. I think Calgary minus 1.5 is definitely a pick that we're clicking this week. And I think under 50.5 is probably pretty good in this spot, given the offensive struggles of the Ottawa Red Blacks. So I'm going with that one. Winnipeg against BC. This was one that I did not have a prediction for in the best bets, because our best weapon is our ability to say no to these games. And so I did that against Winnipeg here with Winnipeg and BC. Winnipeg looked like the better team last week. Now they get Collaros back. That should offset any kind of a home field advantage that BC may have gained going from Winnipeg out to the West Coast. There is just something hanging over me from that Grey Cup that makes me question how good this Winnipeg team really is. And I still have questions about how good this BC team really is. So this is one that I'm fascinated to just sit back and watch and just let it happen and just see what we get when it comes to this one. So very excited to see how this plays out. But my pick for it, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That is going to do it for part 1 of the podcast, streams, and everything here today. As always, presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag. And also head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. You're going to need that energy to get through some of these marathon streams that we are doing around these parts. So for people on the stream, this is going to keep rolling. For people in podcast form, podcast 1 is now done. And now we begin with part 2. As always, Couch Potato Diary is presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for the great Calgary swag, and head over to Swift Energy. Use the code PKPrimetime at swiftenergy.gg to get that fuel you need to get through the gaming that you're doing. We got a bunch of sports, CFL, baseball, we got basketball on in a little bit here. Want to get this done before we get to that. Looking a little dicey, but we got a long night ahead of us, so want to get to all of it as we roll along here. SwiftEnergy.gg, some fantastic flavors, really great stuff. The new shakers look great, but I've said before, I'm rocking with the old one because it's still good. So they got some good stuff over at SwiftEnergy.gg. This part of the stream and this podcast today is going to be combat sports focused as we look at the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We haven't updated power rankings in a little bit, so going to look at that, and then we will look at what happened with Monday Night Raw. So let's dive right in and get into some fight talk, looking at the pound-for-pound rankings in the UFC. A couple big UFC cards are behind us now, so a pretty good time to remind everyone of where we are at when it comes to the pound-for-pound rankings. We will begin on the men's side. At number 10, it's Jon Jones. I have to keep him on here because of all the achievements he has. He is still technically the heavyweight champion of the world, but this is getting ridiculous. Dana White is just clueless in this entire situation. Jon Jones, get off of social media. It's not helping anybody. And it has been a very, very frustrating thing to have to put up with. So just stop it. And so because of that, he is down at number 10. At 9, you have Magomed Ankalaev, who is making his way into the rankings after he claims the 205-pound championship. Pantoja stays at number 8. At number 7, it is Alex Pereira. Yes, he falls down after losing the championship. No, he is not behind the guy who beat him because Pereira has still put together an amazing resume, and one loss does not slow that down. So it needs to get back on the horse. We'll see where he goes, but it is one of the all-time great runs. I'm not going to dismiss anything for that. At number 6, it's Alex Volkanovski, who makes his way back onto the rankings after the championship win that he had to reclaim gold at 145 pounds. At 5, it's Tom Aspinall, who is a knockout machine, but inactivity now, as frustrating as it is, the inactivity, I have to have him down at number 5. Coming in at number 4, it is Merab Dvalishvili. He makes a huge jump in the rankings from 8 to 4, answering so many questions in the fight against Sean O'Malley. It solidifies his title reign. Maybe it shouldn't have taken him this long, or me this long, to get him up into number 4 spot, but he is here now. Continuing on here with our UFC pound-for-pound rankings, but Deed's asking, hey PK, where do we get great Calgary swag? Of course it's seaofdead403.ca. People on the stream, it's getting repetitive now, but people on the podcast, like, you've said it once. Cool. The joys of editing and all of that. But yes, look how good this hat looks. I love this thing. Look how great this thing looks. Anyway, for people listening on the podcast, that part was really annoying. Coming in at number 3, it's Dricus du Plessis. A couple of very high-level wins gets him to this point where he is now top 3 pound for pound in my rankings. At 2, it is Ilya Topuria. His opportunity to be a champ maybe goes away with certain results that we have had over the last little bit, but for now, he stays at number 2. And number 1, it is Islam Makhachev, who will be daring to be great, moving up to 170 pounds shortly. But even still, he is number 1 on the pound for pound rankings for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So that is what we have on the men's side. What about the women's side? Because there have been a couple of shakeups since the last time we did these. So let's get to it. The women's pound for pound rankings in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Smooth. The Ultimate Fighting Championship. Again, pretty good run of shows lately, and some big ones. So we have changes to the rankings. We get now into the women's pound-for-pound rankings. We begin at number 10. Natalia Silva works her way into the rankings after a gigantic win at UFC 315. She is deserving of, if not a title shot, probably being within a fight of a title opportunity. I will also say, we haven't done fights to make in a while, so we're going to accumulate them from UFC 315, 316, and the Ultimate Fight Night card when we do this a little bit later on here on Couch Potato Diary. Coming in at number 9, it is Tatiana Suarez, the first setback of her career, but I still think talent-wise, this is one of the 10 most talented fighters in the UFC. Coming in at number 8, it is Rose Namajunas. She comes off of a very important fight with Miranda Maverick. I still think, given the resume and everything, she is deserving of being where she is. And, I mean, obviously, I feel that I made these rankings. Coming in at number 7, it is Erin Blanchfield. At 6, it's Manon Fiorot. Both of them, again, very intriguing fighters. Couple setbacks, couple very good performances. They are right there. At number 5, it is Juliana Pena. She drops down from number 3. Can't have her fall down too far because she's losing to a woman who was previously in this spot at number 5. I don't like how she goes about things, but this is still a good fighter. It's a solid fighter. It's a talented fighter. I'm not going to bump her down too much based off of this. At 4, it is Yan Xiaonan. At 3, Zhang Wei Li, which means we got a new person in at number 2. It is Kayla Harrison. This is where she has deserved to be for a while now. She has the gold to validate the spot, so she moves up from number 5 and has an incredible opportunity ahead of her as she gets ready for a fight with Amanda Nunes next. Someone who is familiar with that is at number 1. Valentina Shevchenko is still the pound-for-pound queen of the Ultimate Fighting Championship right now. I'm not quite sure how to handle Nunes coming back in these rankings, to be perfectly honest with you. But we'll figure it out as we go, hey? So those are the pound-for-pound rankings in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, coming out of a couple very important fight weeks and going into another one with Joel Hill against Khalil Roundtree coming up in a bit. That should be a pretty fun fight night to watch. But we now move to the world of professional wrestling, which has been very busy lately. The WWE putting a lot of effort into a lot of different shows, and eventually you knew plans would come back to bite them a little bit, and they certainly have. Let's take a look at a noteworthy Monday Night Raw because of a very, very disappointing turn of events with one of the top stars. The WWE is on the road to Night of Champions, which means the King and Queen of the Ring, which also means Evolution, which also means that SummerSlam's right around the corner. Hey, did you know there's Saturday night's main event? Boy, wasn't Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank awesome? It never stops in the WWE, and unfortunately, that sometimes leads to plans going awry. And that is the big story, I think, coming out of Raw, is the injury to Liv Morgan. It's a freak accident. Like, it's Kairi Sane going for just a dragon screw, and Liv Morgan kind of taking you've all seen it by now, and dislocates her shoulder. It sucks, right? Like, it is such a freak accident. It is at the worst time. And so, like, you hope that she is okay, first and foremost, right? Like, you hope that, like, mentally she's doing all right, physically she's doing okay, all those different things. You just hope all of that is fine. Career-wise, the timing couldn't be worse. She is on an incredible roll, and it really felt like she had found her character in the last, 18 months. And it just, every week, she's getting better and better and more comfortable and working through all of that. So to have this happen now is really unfortunate. And she is involved in so much right now. Setting up something with Io Sky on Monday. There is the obvious tension with the Judgment Day storyline and Roxy, and then potentially Raquel getting thrown in as well. By the way, has a match coming up with one of the most famous women's wrestlers of all time in Nikki Bella at Evolution. So she had a couple of things on the dance card here, and now all of that kind of goes away. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the WWE kind of pivots off of this, and I'm going to be very fascinated to see how the WWE handles this situation. I have a couple of ideas on that. Going to discuss them in a separate video a little bit later. And for podcast listeners, it's going to be in a different spot. We are introducing this week, I'm promising, I said this a couple weeks ago, but promising this week, introducing a new podcast. It is going to be Living Room Lariats. It's going to be an accumulation of all the wrestling podcasts that we do here on Couch Potato, like all the wrestling content in one spot weekly. And then there's going to be some original stuff on that as well. If you're watching on YouTube in Daily Motion, those clips are still going to be here. But if you want all the wrestling in one place, because I know not all wrestling fans are sports fans, so want to do this for the wrestling folks out there, check out Living Room Lariats. And again, that will be coming out. It's not up yet, so don't go rushing to subscribe or anything. Keep it locked to my social medias for all of that. But going to be some more wrestling content coming from me. Elsewhere on Monday Night Raw, Gunther is next as Goldberg calls out Gunther for Saturday night's main event. They set this up a while ago, even going so far back as the Calgary show at the end of last summer, where Gunther tells Bret Hart that his favorite wrestler was Goldberg, which, by the way, elite promo. Oh, that was so funny. I loved every bit of that. Thought it was amazing. So, yeah, that was fun. It has been a build up to this point, so there's at least a bit of a story here. I'm a huge Goldberg mark, so you're not going to be saying, oh, how does this guy deserve a championship opportunity? He's Goldberg, man. I don't know, deal with it. Is this match going to be awesome? It is not. I don't think that this match will end up onto the greatest hits of Gunther anytime. So it has a better opportunity of ending up on Botchamania, to be perfectly honest with you. But I still, it's Goldberg. I'm happy to see the whole production of all of it. Hear the music again. Hear him scream, "You're next" at people. Love it. Absolutely love it. And so I'm excited. Was it concerning to see the 58-year-old man who was coming back for a world title match limp to the ring on Monday? It was. Yes, it was. Yeah, 100%. But I'm still going to watch. And I'm still going to love Goldberg. And if the match sucks, I will immediately then put on the best of Goldberg from somewhere and just watch him just spear the hell out of people for a while and throw him on the video games and all of that. So we'll be fine. We'll get through this one together, shall we? So I have no real concerns about this at all. Asuka moves on in the Queen of the Ring tournament. Her match with Ivy Nile, Raquel Rodriguez, and Stephanie Vaquer. Really fun. Really good match. They gave Asuka the video treatment last week. They kind of spoiled it with the graphic. I still think a surprise here would have been more fun. Like she being, you have a surprise on the men's side, a surprise on the women's side. Asuka the surprise here. I think you would have got a huge reaction, and I think you would have got an even bigger reaction to her winning. And I think that would have been pretty exciting. I think the one reason to not is that it is in the bracket with Stephanie Vaquer, and so everyone would just be assuming, okay, well Stephanie's winning this, and then going on to da. And so you do risk running into a lot of people being excited about Stephanie and then that getting taken away. But I still think that probably would have been the way to go. Either way, it was a fun match. Asuka is good as ever. The face paint is elite. All of it is, it's a fun character that they have going on right now. I think Ivy Nile deserves more of an opportunity. Performers like her are the reason why they made the Intercontinental Championship on the women's side. And we'll get to it in a second. I do like the Bayley Becky thing for Evolution and onward. But once that picture gets kind of sorted, I do think that Nile needs to be more involved in a few things here. We continue the Raquel Rhea feud. They have forever rivals feel to them, don't they? Right? Like I think that with the right storytelling, you can get this pretty quickly to feeling like a blood feud going into Evolution with all the history they have from that they told coming up together and at NXT and now on the main roster as well. There's a lot of history there, so there's a big story that you can tell with that. And then Stephanie Vaquer continues to just have it. The crowd, it loves her. The matches are great. The Devil's Kiss has turned into the highlight spot of the night for various reasons for various people, but using it in creative ways now on the ladder and on the apron. She's a star. She is just a star, and it's exciting to see now kind of where she is going. So I'm hoping we get an actual feud for her to really sink her teeth into. Quite frankly, if Io was a heel, I would say just give her the title now. And you guys know what I think of Io. At least put her in a feud there. So I'm interested to see what the first real feud is for Stephanie Vaquer. Also in the women's division, mentioned it before, Becky and Bayley. I thought they had a really good promo battle here. You have two vets who are very comfortable with each other. They are very good, and it's nice and easy build for them. This should be a really good match at Evolution. I am very much looking forward to seeing what we get out of these two. Honestly, I think you could close the show with it. You know? Like, at first, that seems a little, but think about it. We're talking about Evolution here. What's been the evolution in the women's division in the next little bit? It would be rude to say, hey, they're much more awesome than they were then. Probably. But the real tangible evolution that you have are these new belts. And you have two of your biggest stars wrestling for them, so why not? Why not put them in the main event there to really highlight the evolution that this company has had in the women's division? The Lyra part of this is interesting. She confronts Bailey, backstage. And I had just kind of assumed like these two were going to be teammates going into WrestleMania, so they are now teaming up here. And that's not really the case. You had Lyra saying, I'm going to do what's best for you. You did what's best for you. I'm going to do what's best for me. It had a hint of a heel turn there. I don't think that would be the best way to use her, but it's an interesting wrinkle. And either way, I just don't want her getting lost in the wash here. Like she is a very good performer. She is figuring this character out a little bit, and I think needs more seasoning around that. So just, She needs to be involved more because there's a star there somewhere. Jey Uso advances in the King of the Ring tournament. It was a fun match. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but they obviously have a star in Jey Uso right now. The crowd is so into him. The merch sales are insane. You have to go with this guy still, right? So I actually think getting him away from the scrutiny of the world title picture is going to be beneficial to him. And I think that will definitely help him out. It gives him a little bit more flexibility with what you can do with the character. No question that a main eventer has been built in Jey Uso, and now it is just a case of what direction they go from here. We got Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn facing off in the back. I still think that the way to go about this is to have Sami Zayn head out. He is going for his title opportunity. It's in Saudi Arabia, where there's obviously a lot of history there. And now, what does he... What can he get over this hump and get to a title opportunity against the guy who he has beaten for a championship before, presumably, in Gunther? Can you do that? Instead, he loses to a guy who's supposed to be his friend in Cody. And it is the heartbreak that kind of turns him a little bit. I will say, I think there's an interesting angle where Karrion Kross helps Sami Zayn, and we have it's another heel faction on Raw, but we have another heel group, and Sami Zayn sees the dark side. I think there are different ways you can go, but I do think that Sami getting to the King of the Ring final and losing his championship opportunity is a very good storytelling device going forward. I will say, though, it's probably the last big loss you can do without there being a significant change to the character going forward here. So that's where we are at right now with him. Other notes here, they edited the Punk Cena promo brilliantly. It was a bit of a choppy one on SmackDown, but we got the ultimate messaging out, and the Punk line of, you can say, you're going to drag me out of my comfort zone. I would go to hell to wrestle you for that championship to prove that I'm better than you. These two are so good at building these up. I am still not looking forward to what that match looks like, says the hypocrite who's excited for Goldberg, but I am excited to see how this build goes in the next week and a bit. And then AJ Styles pushes toward the Intercontinental title against Dom. He beats JD McDonough. I thought the stuff with the Judgment Day and Finn, it's becoming really entertaining. And Finn just being an asshole, basically, is a character that has worked for him. So they have found something with that. And honestly, if they put the IC title on AJ, not breaking my heart. I would kind of like that. And one last note here. I thought Corey Graves was great on commentary. I could really see a 3-man booth with him, Cole, and McAfee being something that would work together pretty well. So overall, it was a good Raw, not a great Raw. And they are certainly building to something here in the next little bit. Again, if you want more wrestling talk, look for the podcast. Obviously, Couch Potato Diary. We're still going to have these breakdowns. They're going to be more time sensitive when I can do the streams live again. The breakdowns and everything are still going to be on Couch Potato Diary proper. So if you like your wrestling with your sports, we will have it for you. But if you just want the wrestling, it will be on Living Room Lariats, the new podcast here from the Couch Potato Diary Network. More details to come on that. Follow me on social media, but there's going to be a lot of great wrestling content coming out of that. That is going to do it for this one. And honestly, we're getting a little long here. I know we've gone longer for sure, but to be perfectly frank, I want to watch basketball. So what we're going to do here, I know the descriptions and everything said mega stream, 4 episodes. You only got 2. I'm sorry. So we will stop it here, and we'll pick up where we left off after the basketball game. Let's react to the NBA Finals. Let's react to a big trade that happened in basketball and a big trade that happened in baseball. We got some, I have some more hockey to float by you guys, and we got some more wrestling, UFC, and fighting stuff to go along as well. So we got a lot still to cover here in the next little bit on Couch Potato Diary, but that'll be coming up after the NBA game. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. This isn't a sales to anything. I am obsessed with this hat. I may not let any of you buy anymore and just keep them all for myself because this thing is awesome. But check it out, seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag. Follow me on social media. I am at PrimetimeKlein. Use that Swift Energy, swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime. One more time, shout out to Deeds for the subscription over on Twitch. 16 months strong from Deeds, and I so very much appreciate it. Would love it if more could follow suit and subscribe over on Twitch. I understand not everyone can. Just watching, it means the world to me. But if you want to hit follow, that would be great. Watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notification bell. Same thing goes for people watching later on Daily Motion. It's follow, I believe. So hit that button there. If you're listening in podcast form after the fact, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. If you are so inclined, we do have the tip jar open. The dog and cats would appreciate it, but I certainly would as well. Thank you guys so much. Let's talk after the basketball game, hey? Right here on Couch Potato Diary. Have a good next couple of hours, won't you?